Happy Monday, everyone. I can hardly believe that we're almost done with Revelation. Honestly, it has been one of my favorite sermon series I've ever done. Through what's become one of my favorite books and one of the most encouraging and helpful books for me. And I hope it's been the same for you. There's been a few people that have shared with me that they finally feel like they have a grasp and an understanding of Revelation, which is part of the reason I thought it would be helpful to preach through it. And again, like every week, there's probably stuff that we could talk further about, just because I'm trying to get through the whole book in less than a year. But there were a few things that I want to talk about from yesterday that, again, just didn't have time to talk about in my sermon. The first is in verse 1. It says, I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. When I was growing up, I was always taught that what that meant was that this earth is going to be destroyed. So what we see around us is no longer going to exist ever again. And a parallel passage that people would appeal to is 2 Peter 3, verse 7, and then skipping down to verses 10 through 13. I'll just read those first, and then I'll walk through why I don't think that is true anymore. So verse 7, by the same word, the present heavens and earth are stored up for fire, being kept for the day of judgment and destruction of the ungodly. But the day of the Lord will come like a thief. On that day the heavens will pass away with a loud noise. The elements will burn and be dissolved, and the earth and the works on it will be disclosed. Since all these things are to be dissolved in this way, it is clear what sort of people you should be in holy conduct and godliness, as you wait for the day of God and hasten its coming. Because of that day, the heavens will be dissolved with fire, and the elements will melt with heat. But based on his promise, we wait for new heavens and a new earth where righteousness dwells. What's interesting is, in context, what Peter's talking about here is talking about the preservation of the world through the flood. So then, what the way we should interpret 2 Peter 3, I would argue, is the fire is purifying. Because so fire can destroy things, but if you throw gold into fire, it actually purifies. It makes it completely perfect. Similarly, I would argue in the new heavens and the new earth, what God's going to do is he's going to cleanse, he's going to purify, he's going to renew and remake the heavens and the earth until it's a new heavens and a new earth. And I get that from verse 6, which says, through these the world of that time perished when it was flooded. Now, I don't know anyone that believes that the world literally perished, that it was destroyed, that it was gone through the flood. So Peter's comparing these two ways. The flood was meant to be a recreation because of how evil the earth had gotten. God said he was going to wipe out humanity and start over, a new creation, a new Eden, a new Adam through Noah's line. But no one I know believes that the earth was completely destroyed in that flood. Yes, it was different. There were different things about it. So I think similarly, when we get to the new heavens and the new earth, there's going to be a lot of parallel and carryover between those two things. Another one that was just interesting, verse 15 says, the one who spoke with me had a golden measuring rod to measure the city. There's another instance where a measuring rod was used to measure the temple back in Revelation 11. But in that place, it's John who is commanded to measure it out. And there's no measurements given in that case. I shared back in Revelation 11 just a piece that I, again, just didn't have time to talk about yesterday. Part of what's signified by measuring is God knows every little person who is a part of this. So when God goes and measures something, it means every person is included as a part of this measuring. God knows exactly who is a part of it. One of the things that I was talking to someone after the service yesterday that someone had pointed out the way the end of 21 and the beginning of 22 connect to each other, and I couldn't remember what it was in the moment, so I want to just mention that here. What it's emphasizing in verses 22 through 27 is, in the new heavens and the new earth, God is the temple in that section, but then it goes on, and beginning of chapter 22, verses 1 through 5, it talks about the city is the temple. So it's an interesting parallel, and again, a point for me to believe that this city that is described here is not a literal city. It's instead referring to all of the people of God living together are this new city in this new earth that God has commissioned us to go and read and not to go read, to go live in and pursue and dream and look forward to. Also, I read a fascinating article this week. I'll link to it in the email that I send out. It was titled, "We Won't Do Nothing for Eternity." And so he says there's two big things that we can pick up on in Revelation 22 about what heaven is going to be like and what our roles will be in heaven. So in verse 4, it talks about they will see his face and his name will be on their foreheads. Now, again, I think that's picking up some allusions previously to Revelation, where you either have the name of the or the number of the beast on your forehead or the name of God on your forehead. But what this article talks about is he points it back to Exodus 28, where as God is walking through the qualifications or the what Aaron is supposed to wear, one of the things is there's supposed to be something on Aaron's forehead, which is God is holy. So we in the new heavens and the new earth is as high priests. So again, just like the way that this new city is referred to in the same terms as the most holy place, where we now have unmediated access to God, this is another picture pointing to the reality that in the new heavens and the new earth, we will be priests. Secondly, the end of verse 5 talks about they will reign forever and ever. This article postulates or argues that this is pointing back to Daniel 7:27. Now Daniel 7:27 says, "The kingdom, dominion, and greatness of the kingdoms under all of heaven will be given to the people, the holy ones of the Most High," that is, those who are saved. "His kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom, and all rulers will serve and obey him." So what we're getting with these two combinations is in the new heavens and the new earth, all of God's people will be priests and kings. Now, some of what we need to, you may not understand is throughout Scripture, the Old Testament continually points to someone coming better who's going to be a better king, a better prophet, and a better priest. Now, so we have two of those three in the new heavens and the new earth that are fulfilled by us. Um, but in the new heavens and the new earth, we won't need any prophets. Think of what Jeremiah 31 says. It says, everyone someday will know the Lord. His law will be written on our hearts and in our minds. So in the new heavens and the new earth, all of us are going to be like little Jesuses, fulfilling his role, walking on earth and serving and loving and caring for each other. And then he goes on and quotes from N.T. Wright's book, Surprised by Hope. And I just want to read this just to kind of summarize this idea. N.T. Wright says, "The purpose of this new body will be to rule wisely over God's new world. Forget those images about lounging around playing harps. There will be work to do, and we shall relish doing it. All the skills and talents we have put to God's service in this present life will be enhanced and ennobled and given back to us to be exercised to his glory." This is something that I've been meditating on the past few months as I've been reflecting on where God has called me over the course of my life. And in our world today, we don't do a very good job of embracing limits. There's a book that came out a few years ago now by a theologian named Kelly Kapic titled "You're Only Human," that was really, really just comforting and encouraging to me that limits are a good thing that God gave to us to remind us that we are not God. So one of the things that I have done over the past few months, just as my life has shifted over the past few years, is a couple things about me. One is I love playing basketball, and second is I love music. And God has really gifted me with music, and I love playing music. Over the past few months, though, I've actually sold past year I've sold most of my guitar equipment, which was really heavy and difficult for me to do, and I realized in the course of that I needed to be okay letting go of things on this earth because God has called me to something else in this season of life I'm in right now. Like I need to spend more time with my kid, pouring into my kids, spending time with my wife, spending time on preparing sermons and shepherding this church that God has called and commissioned me to pursue. But what that means is when I get to the new heavens and the new earth, I will have all the time in the world I want to go continue playing guitar. And same thing with basketball. Like I haven't been able to play basketball as much. I did something to my knee this summer while I was hiking in the Alps, and so that like has triggered some regular pain in there, which again just gets me excited for the new heavens and the new earth, where I can go play basketball as much and as long as I want. And at the same time, like that I have had to allow myself to mourn the loss of those things. Um, on this side of heaven because it allows me to get more excited for what is coming in the new heavens and the new earth. And I'm guessing if we would ask any of you, you would have similar experiences about this. So to me, as I was just thinking and meditating on this passage, this text this week, it was a reminder to long for heaven. It just gets me really excited about that day where we will be able to do things completely and fully as God actually intended us to be. I want to wrap up. I had someone last week ask me how I determined what was symbolic and what was not. And so I just want to talk about that because I'm guessing it's a question many of you have as well. I don't have a method. However, I lean towards pretty much everything in here, almost everything in here being symbolic, but symbolic being stand-ins for real things. So actually referring to real events and things that happen. So just a couple brief examples of this is like the two beasts in Revelation 13. I would argue we're not going to see two literal beasts coming up out of the land and the sea, but those are real empires that will rise and fall over time. Another example that we talked about 2 weeks ago, the lake of fire refers to a real place. It doesn't mean it's necessarily a lake, and it doesn't mean it's full of fire. Those are just descriptors of the torment that people are going to be experiencing. This week, golden streets. I don't think they're necessarily that necessarily means that when we get to the new earth, all our streets will change from asphalt to gold. Instead, what that denotes is pure, perfect places to walk. Like there's no impurities in any of them. And one of the things I want to add in just like as we're getting to the end of this book, I think one of the things that we struggle to understand about in Revelation is we don't understand how to read and interpret apocalyptic literature. One of the most helpful people that I've read throughout this entire sermon series has been D.A. Carson's lecture series. He's taught on Revelation a number of times. One of them is like a 30 seminar lecture series that I have on Logos that has been just super helpful for me in clarifying. But one of the things Carson said at the very beginning of his lectures is that the best way to understand Revelation is go back and read a bunch of first century Jewish apocalyptic literature, because some of it's just crazy and way out there. And so then after you've read all that, you come to Revelation. Suddenly Revelation seems easy and tame in comparison. And Carson actually claims to have read every first century Jewish apocalyptic document that we have available to us today, which means I trust a lot of what his impulses and instincts are when he then brings it into Revelation. Now, I haven't agreed with every single interpretation by him. That's why at the beginning of this sermon series, I talked about all the various wide assortment of resources that I've been reading and studying in preparation for this interpreting this book. But it's been a really joy-filled experience for me, and I hope it has been for you as well. Again, if you have any questions about this, feel free to reach out. I would encourage you get Randy Alcorn's book Heaven and read it. And one last encouragement for this week is, as we're getting ready for Thanksgiving, I'd encourage you just take some time over the next week to do something that spurs your heart and mind and emotions on towards heaven. Like cook a delicious steak that you enjoy. Go watch a sunset sometime this week. Go read a book that you love. Call a friend if that person spurs you on to long for and desire heaven more fully. One brief note: we'll finish Revelation on Sunday, and then mark your calendars for Sunday night at 6:30. We'll have our regular prayer, praise, and pie time. So we'd love to have you join us there. And for the rest of the week, I hope you are blessed, and we'll see you again on Sunday morning.